Okay, everybody, what is going on? Good evening. Hard Knocks episode 4 has just wrapped up, and we got one episode left after this one. We got one episode next week where hopefully all of these storylines and all of these narratives wrap up in a satisfying way. But let's talk about what we saw tonight. I just finished watching the episode about 15 minutes ago. So I've got some notes here, some things I want to talk about. So for those of you out there who watch the episode, you should be able to follow along. And for those of you out there who didn't get a chance to watch the episode and maybe will not be able to, I'll be able to run down the basic gist of what happened. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks. So there was a definite emphasis on injury stuff this week. I think that was one of the big things that you'll notice when you watch this episode. There were two major injuries for the Seahawks over the last week. We had the Jake Bobo one, then we had the Bud Clark one. So it wasn't a surprise, and I don't think it was a coincidence that the Seahawks, that Hard Knocks, the film crew, ended up editing the episode such that there was emphasis on Bobo and Clark earlier before the injuries. You got kind of your narrative there, right? Like the very first scene of this episode, Jake Bobo is in a meeting room with Jackson Frisman, the wide receiver coach, talking about his role with the team. Frisman talking about being a glue guy on the team, somebody that doesn't put up the big numbers, but he sets the attitude, he sets the personality, he's out there blocking, he's out there doing things that not everybody notices, but are still valuable. And there was even like a moment where you were saying, like, I'm starting to feel like you don't have that fire right now. I want to see you get back to that. And then Bobo's talking about, letting it go again, because obviously Bobo was injured with the hamstring before the ACL. So he had not been practicing previously, even before the ACL tear. So you definitely felt like they were building that narrative. And when you know how it ends, it's a little bit tough to watch, right? When you know that it ends with Jake Bobo with a torn ACL, you are definitely kind of like, oh man, I don't want to watch this. It's just going to make me think about what we're not going to have this year. But we got a bunch of that. We also had some of the coverage of like Jake Bobo at the practice the day before the injury, where he's trying to get his rhythm back, trying to get his route running back on point, catching the touchdown over Bud Clark. A little bit of a ominous synergy there, by the way. And again, it's like, where the story ends. So it's like, and I don't even want to feel good about this stuff, even though some of it's pretty cool because, well, we know what happened. So that was one of the big themes. And again, Bud Clark, there was a little bit of focus on him earlier in the episode as well with his kid running around. So they were definitely building to that. But the other focal point of the episode to me was disappointment about the pre-snap operation of the team. They're not lining up fast enough on offense. They're not lining up fast enough on defense. And there was a whole segment early in the episode where each individual position room was getting together like, okay, how do we improve the operation? How do we get up to the line quicker? How do we break huddle faster? You saw it from the quarterbacks, the defensive linemen. I think you saw it from the running backs, wide receivers, linebackers. It was kind of like a building-wide understanding of the necessity of getting that on lockdown, with an understanding that the fact that it's not very good right now is understandable because we're still early in the process. All right, guys, let's take a quick break here to talk a little bit about Prize Picks, currently the #1 sports pick app in America. The app is very easy to use. Check it out to my left here. You can do player picks, where you just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Or you can pick teams, where you pick winners, spread, or total on any game or fight. The app is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Right now, they have a great offer. You can play your first $5 lineup and get $150 in lineups if you win. All you have to do is use code HMA when you sign up. It's a brand new offer. Best time possible to get on the app. So get on over there and get to winning that first lineup. So remember, Prize Picks, code HMA. Download the app today and remember to always gamble responsibly. And it seems like there's a general feeling in the building that making mistakes is okay as long as you keep getting better and you're not making the same mistakes over and over again. And that was kind of a recurring theme throughout the episode, not just because of the Cowboys preseason game, but also a sense that the team wasn't really bringing it in the joint practice when it started against the Titans. So you definitely felt that, like, things are not going as well as they were hoping. McDonald was getting very irritated on the sideline during the joint practice because the Titans early on were kind of winning the battle. They were having their way with our defense. They were running on us, and he was irritated. And there was a definite sense of, like, it's time to turn it up a little bit. And in this episode, at least, you did get that at the end. It was like a narrative that was taken all the way home and ultimately concluded. So beyond that, that was kind of some of the bigger stuff in this episode. There was one segment where Mike McDonald was talking about a former NFL linebacker, OJ. I couldn't remember his last name, but his first name was OJ, and he recently passed away because he had ALS for the last 2 decades, and he had a personal relationship with him. He talked about some of the experiences he had with him, and he got emotional about it, so that was an interesting moment. I didn't know that player, though. It was a player that I had never heard of before. Apparently, it was a player that had won a Super Bowl and a Grey Cup in the CFL. So he was a player of some note, but I'd never heard of him. So you had that segment. Brady Russell was talking about his kid, and there was a funny moment where he's talking about how it doesn't feel like human skin when the kid first comes out, which I don't know if he wanted to put that on camera and microphone like that, but I would assume these players understand that everything they say could be caught on film and caught on mic right now. So I guess he's okay with it. But there was a Brady Russell segment about his kid, because remember, he left, I think, at halftime of the Cowboys game to go attend to his wife during childbirth. And I guess she did it completely natural. So that was interesting. There was more Monty Foster. That seems to be one of the guys that Hard Knocks is really gravitating towards right now. Feels like Hard Knocks is really focusing in on Foster as like the underdog dude. And he's kind of the perfect Hard Knocks guy, right? Like Monty Foster is like the perfect Hard Knocks story. The guy that comes out of nowhere, he's an underdog. No one really expects him to make the team, but then he balls out, and then people in front of him get hurt, and suddenly it's like, okay, this is a narrative that we can capitalize on. And we saw him talking with, I think, his parents. We saw him making some nice catches and running good routes in camp. And we also saw him get cramps in the joint practice. And they even focused on a couple of blocks that he threw in the joint in the preseason game. And that's really good. There were 2 really good blocks he threw, and he also made a tackle on special teams. That's the kind of stuff that Foster's going to have to do if he wants to really make sure he makes this team, because he's a good receiver. He can run good routes. He has good hands. He's doing a lot of things that we like, but the special teams and blocking, that's where he can really leave an impact here, because that's probably more so what we need him for than anything offensively at the moment. So to see a couple of those good blocks and the special teams tackle was really good. Let's see what else here. So the next major segment was Trayvon Diggs. They didn't linger on it too much, but Trayvon Diggs was a focal point here. We saw his workout with the team. It was very similar to the Terry and Arnold workout in terms of structure. We saw him meet with Schneider, where he talked about how he has not had the opportunity to have a clean off season for several years in a row now, because he's always coming back from injury until this year. This is the first time in, I think he said, 4 years that he's had a clean off season where he can just focus on strength training and really getting better rather than just trying to physically heal up. And he feels like that's going to be a big reason why he plays much better this year. He thinks that will allow him to be a much better player in 2026. And I mean, the episode didn't actually, I don't believe, really cover the fact that we signed him, but we know, because we follow this team, that we signed him. So on some level, I guess Schneider's buying what Trayvon Diggs is selling, and um, you can see why there's some optimism. You can see why he believes that he can get back to form. Now, even him getting back to form, there are problems there. And I think we all know those problems, but we don't need a superstar. We just need somebody that can play without completely losing their head. And I think that the sense is that if we tried to play Julian Neal or Michael Dansby or Andre Fuller right now, they would lose their head. So we got the Diggs part. There was some levity in this episode as well. There was a prep for travel to the Tennessee where they were talking about how you got to eat a lot of carbs before you fly, and you got to drink a lot because you lose a lot of water in your body. You lose a lot of hydration when you are in the air, which I didn't know actually. I didn't know how bad it was. It was like 8 ounces every hour because of the elevation. So we got stuff like that. We had the rookie talent show, which was pretty goofy. I don't really have a lot to say about it. It was mostly just singing. But that was something that we normally would not have gotten the opportunity to see. So that was, I mean, we'll probably never get a chance to see the Seahawks rookie talent show again unless we do Hard Knocks again. So, okay. I'm not against it, but we got to see a bit of that. We got to see the couple of the players going on a cowboy hat shopping spree thing. I think it was Darnold, Locke, and I think there was at least one other player there. I can't remember who it was, but that was kind of the levity of the episode. You can definitely feel that there's less levity now because we're getting closer to the season. Things are getting more real. So you're not quite having as much fun, and there's not quite as much fluff, but there was still moments of let's be a little bit more light and not take things so seriously. So that was interesting. I didn't know there was so much that went into making a cowboy hat, by the way, so that was cool too. We got the joint practice, like I said, one of the highlights, well, not highlight, but low light, I guess, would be the Bobo injury, which it was rough, it was bad, right? But beyond that, there was a moment where McDonald pulled Cup aside and was like, you don't need to participate in this joint practice. We've seen everything we need to see from you. We know you're good for it. And Cup doesn't participate in the joint practice. And it was kind of almost felt like a foreshadowing moment in light of the fact that we were going to come out of that practice with multiple concerns at wide receiver. The Foster one ended up being a leg cramp, ended up being nothing. So that one's fine. That one's whatever. The Bobo one, very much not whatever. But again, we kind of go back to that original narrative that I was talking about, where it feels like the team is just not gotten their intensity up to where it needs to be yet. And like I said, there was a moment where the Titans were running the ball really well on us in the red zone, and McDonald was very unhappy. It felt like a slow start. It felt like things were just sleepy. And you have to have high expectations for a joint practice like this because you're playing a team that doesn't expect to be that great this year, and you're the defending Super Bowl champions. Now, the way the episode is cut, it sure seems like once McDonald got into the players a little bit, things got a lot better. We saw the Okada pick six. We saw a couple other good plays on defense. It felt like the tables turned pretty quickly there. But even after it was over, I think there was a sequence with, I want to say Julian Love and Leonard Williams, where they were talking coming off the field saying, we got to ramp it up. We got to get it together. We got to start really cranking the dials on this one because they both kind of felt like this is not going to be good enough. And again, it's like a story. You tell the story through the episode, and then by the end, ideally, you have some kind of a conclusion to the arc. And if that is the case, then I think for the most part, that game, the actual preseason game we played against the Titans, showed that improvement. And I think that you saw the team get a little bit more amped up for that one. You saw the team get a little bit more excited, and there was more intensity. And the early part of that game, the Seahawks were dominant with their backups against the Titans starters. And we may have ended up losing that game ultimately, but I think we all know that winning and losing in the preseason doesn't matter. There are things that do matter in the preseason, but winning and losing is not one of them. But there were plenty of things that happened in that game that I think were things that we wanted much more than a win. So it kind of felt like everything was building up to that. So that was really cool. We got more Monty Foster in the preseason game with the blocks he threw, like I said, and the special teams tackle he made. So the Bud Clark thing, admittedly, look, that overshadowed a lot of the stuff in the preseason game. Like, there was a lot of stuff good that happened in that game that you almost don't even really feel because you're so bummed about the Clark thing. And seeing it on Hard Knocks was interesting because Clark immediately knows he's done. Immediately, he's like, something broke. Like, you can, if you listen to that sequence on the recording, it's like, yeah, he knows instantly he's cooked. And they show the whole process of getting him on the cart and in the locker room working with the trainer. And he actually, I don't know about you guys, I thought he took it really well. I think given the fact that he's a rookie and this was the first play of the game and it's not even the season yet, I thought he took it fairly well. He was not, it wasn't like he was completely torn up about it. He was more like, this sucks, but he took it in, I think, a relatively healthy way. So kind of surprising. I know he's an older rookie, but he's still a rookie. Those are the guys you would expect to get really emotional about this stuff, I think. But he was a little bit more like, well, he was probably in a lot of pain. That's probably a big piece of it. But I thought he actually was handling it fairly well mentally. And of course, at the end of the episode, we had the Milrow stuff, which the episode did a very good job of like skirting direct, overt criticism, I guess I would say. They acknowledged some of the problems, but they were actually very friendly to him, I think. They showed the bad plays, they showed some of the bad moments, but they didn't like nail him to the wall. They didn't destroy him. And he comes out of the episode not looking as bad as he did in the actual game. So, I mean, I think Hard Knocks shies away from being truly vicious in their coverage of some of these players. So it's understandable, but I did notice it. And speaking of a guy who's getting a little bit of a Hard Knocks coverage more than you would expect given his profile, Suamalo, they did point out that he was in on the quarterback sneak stop in the fourth quarter that got us the ball back late and gave us an opportunity to go win the game. So, I mean, Suamalo didn't play well, don't get me wrong. I think we all know that. He's not really an NFL player right now, but it was kind of like a narrative conclusion to the stuff we saw in the last episode talking about him. Kind of felt like they were like, hey, remember this guy? Well, now here he is making a game-saving play. Okay, I'm going to go and get on out of here. That's really all I got. Fun episode, getting a little more serious, getting a little more real, but when you have two major injuries getting covered like that, and for some reason they skipped the Richmond one, I don't know why, a little bit of a pall. Okay, see you guys later. Go Hawks.